After Donald Trump shocked the political world by announcing his candidacy in 2015, the media laughed. Hillary Clinton? She was already being fitted for her crown. But when Trump's poll numbers started to climb, the laughing stopped and the attacks began. This episode dives into the heart of the 2016 campaign, one of the most brutal campaigns in modern history. This is how they tried to crush the MAGA movement before it could ever take hold. Hillary came out of the chute swinging, but so did Donald Trump. He wasn't taking anything that the Democrats and the media were throwing at them. But in particular, there were a number of media outlets, CNN and MSNBC, who were lined up behind Hillary and were throwing jabs at Trump.
That was 4 presidential elections right there, 4 out of 5, from 1972 to 1988, where the winning candidate took at least 40 states and 400 electoral votes. Those were landslides. But since then, well, we haven't had any on that scale. And supposedly, it's just not possible anymore. In this moment, we're seeing an interesting possibility in this presidential race. Our new NBC News SurveyMonkey poll is out today. It puts Hillary Clinton up by 10 points over Donald Trump. And this is not the first poll since the conventions to give Clinton a double-digit lead. This is actually the 4th. 4 polls that have Clinton up by more than 10 points, or at least 10 points. Her lead is reaching levels we just didn't see in the past few campaigns.
The fight for the GOP presidential nomination hit new lows in 2016 as Republicans scrambled to beat frontrunner Donald Trump at his own game.
What's so fascinating, though, is we hear from a lot of media critics that say, well, Trump's successful. We had somebody on the other day that said, you guys were right predicting Trump, but you all are responsible because you talk about him all the time. That's a fallacy. What happens is Trump does something that provokes headlines. And then it provokes 3 days of stories in the New York Times and Washington Post about how his campaign is going to collapse in the next 3 days. So the death watch is on.
In a remarkable display of GOP hesitation and consternation about Donald Trump, House Speaker Paul Ryan, the top Republican in government, refused to endorse the presumptive GOP presidential nominee. On the Democratic side, there was Hillary Clinton's rhetorical fumble about Trump voters.
You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables, right? The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, you name it.
The monster political storm rocking Donald Trump's campaign.
Never one to shy away from a fight, Donald Trump takes on these news organizations head on and goes after them like nobody has ever done before.
And I want you all to know that we are fighting the fake news. It's fake, phony, fake sources. They make up sources. They're very dishonest people. In fact, in covering my comments, the dishonest media did not explain that I called the fake news the enemy of the people, the fake news. They dropped off the word fake. And all of a sudden, the story became the media is the enemy. They take the word fake out.
Since you're attacking us, can you give us a question? No, Mr. President-elect.
Go ahead.
Mr. President-elect, since you are attacking our news organization, can you give us a chance?
Your organization
You are
is
attacking
terrible.
our news organization.
Your organization
Can you give
is
us a
terrible.
chance
Let's
to
go.
ask a question, sir?
Go ahead.
Sir, can
Quiet.
you state,
Quiet.
Mr. President-elect,
Go ahead.
can you state
She's asking
categorically,
a question.
Mr.
Don't be rude.
President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be
You're
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can you
No,
give
I'm not
us a
going to give you a
question?
question. I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir,
go ahead.
Can you state categorically that nobody... No, Mr. President-elect, that's not appropriate.
And while the media was attacking Donald Trump, it wasn't just the media. The Democrats were piling on, and they had some horrible things to say about Trump and his voters.
Donald Trump's ideas aren't just different. They are dangerously incoherent.
The American people do not support a candidate like Trump whose verbiage, whose language, whose rhetoric incites violence.
Deporting 11 million immigrants, even if it were possible, it wouldn't do anything to seriously help the middle class.
This is a guy who will always put himself first.
A small, insecure money grubber who doesn't care who gets hurt so long as he makes a profit off it.
I'm concerned about the people who do support him. He's offering them absolutely nothing other than hate.
It's outrageous, some of the things Trump says about Muslims, about race, about the KKK, about women.
Even above and beyond those outrageous, bigoted statements, take a look at what he stands for economically.
Donald Trump actually stood on a debate stage in November and said that wages are too high.
The Republican nominee for president's tax plan would give the top 0.1% a bigger tax cut than the 120 million American households at the bottom.
I think you have a pathological liar there.
He is temperamentally unfit.
We're going to have to come together and choose a vision of America where everybody gets a fair shot and everybody does their fair share.
Trump is picking on someone who is ethically bound not to defend himself. Exactly what you would expect from a thin-skinned racist bully.
Bloomberg Politics also has a new national poll out that has just devastating numbers for Trump with a different slice of the electorate. Bloomberg looks specifically at white college-educated voters, which is about a third of the electorate. In every election since 1952, white college-educated voters have picked the Republican candidate for president. In the last election, for example, Mitt Romney versus Barack Obama, white college-educated voters went for Mitt Romney over Obama by a margin of 14 points, even though Obama won handily overall. White college-educated voters are as close as the Republican Party gets to a sure thing in national elections. But white college-educated voters are right now plus 11 for Hillary Clinton.
One of the big changes in this campaign, one of the reasons we know Donald Trump is in a ditch, is because if you look at this constituency here, this is back to Election Day 2012. White college grads. Mitt Romney with a 14-point lead over Barack Obama. Now, Republicans always win the white vote, but Mitt Romney had a huge lead over Barack Obama among white college grads, a critical constituency. You find a lot of them in the key suburbs that tend to decide key swing states. Big edge for Mitt Romney. One of the things that makes this campaign interesting and that makes Donald Trump's challenge even greater in the final weeks, Hillary Clinton leads. This is our national CNN ORC poll. Hillary Clinton with an 11-point lead among white college grads.
White voters are fracturing into two groups based on their level of education. Those without college degrees are going for Donald Trump, while those with four-year degrees are swinging behind Hillary Clinton.
Well, the message was pretty clear. If you were an educated, smart person, you have to vote for Hillary Clinton because you don't want to be seen as some kind of a dummy who voted for Donald Trump. But things continued on from here, and we got into the debates between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. And it was certainly a knockdown, throwdown fight between those two.
I was against it once it was finally negotiated and the terms were laid out. I wrote about that in...
You called it the gold standard.
Well, I hope...
You called it the gold standard of trade deals. You said it's the finest deal you've ever seen.
No.
And then you heard what I said about it, and all of a sudden you were against it.
Well, Donald, I know you live in your own reality, but that is not the fact.
Continuing
well,
the
at
subject
least I have a plan to fight ISIS.
No, you're telling the enemy everything you want to do.
No, we're not.
See, you're telling the enemy everything you want to do. No wonder you've been fighting. No wonder you've been fighting ISIS your entire adult life. I will release my tax returns against my lawyer's wishes when she releases her 33,000 emails that have been deleted. As soon as she releases them, I will release my tax returns, and that's against my lawyers. They say don't do it.
So he has a long record of engaging in racist behavior. You know, he tried to switch from looks to stamina. But this is a man who has called women pigs, slobs, and dogs.
Putin. I don't know Putin. He said nice things about me. If we got along well, that would be good.
Well, that's because he'd rather have a puppet as president of the United States.
No puppet.
And it's pretty clear.
You're the puppet.
It's absolutely
She doesn't like Putin because Putin has outsmarted her at every step of the way. Excuse me. She's been proven to be a liar on so many different ways. This is just another lie.
You know, it's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
We want to remind the audience to please not talk out loud. Please do not applaud. You're just wasting time.
As the campaign dragged on, the polls, the Democrats, the media, everyone was saying Trump didn't stand a chance, but that wasn't enough. Hillary had one more trick up her sleeve, and it was a doozy. Russia collusion.
But first, it's worth taking stock of where we are in the investigation. During our March hearing, I posed the question of whether the Trump campaign colluded with Russia in any aspect of its influence operations. In essence, did the Russians offer to help the campaign, and did the campaign accept?
The Kremlin offered dirt to the Trump campaign. The president's campaign said yes to that offer. That's no longer an open question. All that stuff has now been proven and admitted to.
And just so we know, again, there is the public information that we've discussed. You assert that it points to collusion. We were questioning if, in fact, it does. Have you seen things on the classified side that you cannot tell us about, though, that is even stronger evidence than what is out there publicly?
Yes.
Okay, so there are things that you cannot tell us that you think are more, perhaps more convincing than the public information.
There's a pattern here, John, on the classified and unclassified side of deep personal, political, and financial ties that Donald Trump and people in his family, in his businesses, and on his campaign had with a foreign adversary in Russia.
There should be no fuzz on this whatsoever. The Russians interfered in our election during the 2016 cycle. They did it with purpose, they did it with sophistication, they did it with overwhelming technical efforts, and it was an active measures campaign driven from the top of that government. There is no fuzz on that.
I'm not going to dive too deeply into the whole Russian collusion thing because episode 3, which is the very next one, I will focus on that whole entire Russian collusion farce that dragged well into Donald Trump's first year of office. What happened next was the actual election. And as it came down, Donald Trump won, and there were a lot of very unhappy Democrats around the globe.
So very much for being here. And I love you all, too. Last night, I congratulated Donald Trump and offered to work with him on behalf of our country. I hope that he will be a successful president for all Americans. This is not the outcome we wanted or we worked so hard for, and I'm sorry that we did not win this election for the values we share and the vision we hold for our country.
We're going to talk about this more in the next few blocks, but I want to follow up on what Steve just said about how the Clinton campaign believed until 9 o'clock that they had a lock on this, that they were going to win.
I wouldn't call anything encouraging for Hillary Clinton at the moment, to be honest with you, my friend.
Wolf, the scene here is so different than it was a few hours ago when people were happy and relaxed. I have been looking around the room at people who are stone-faced. Some of them have been crying.
This was a white lash against a changing country. It was a white lash against a black president.
This is the people rising up saying it's time to listen to us. It's time to listen to us in Michigan and Wisconsin and work for the people.
Hillary Clinton has called Donald Trump to concede the race.
The front page of every newspaper in the nation is looking ahead to a President Trump. His surprise victory defied pre-election polling.
President Trump won with a convincing 289 electoral college votes, needing 270 for the win. The question then became, who voted for Trump? It was white men and white people overall, both men and women, as well as whites with no degree, voted overwhelmingly for President Trump. The main reasons were they were very dissatisfied with the federal government. Thanks for watching. In the next episode, I'm going to dive deep into the Russia collusion hoax. It was started by the Hillary Clinton campaign during her candidacy and dragged on well into Donald Trump's presidency. Thanks again.